Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Paranormal Radio from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network. Today, Bob Trysick will be talking with Ryan Catoni, a funeral director and does organic cremation, plus much other subjects. So sit back and enjoy Paranormal Radio. And now here is Bob Trysick. Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, hi, John. Thank you very much, John. Yeah, good evening. Nice to be back with you, Paranormal Radio, on Monday, on a very humid Monday night, July 15th here. Today is kind of a different show. Usually, if you listen to my shows I do here, I usually bring on a bunch of folks. We have some musicians, we have some entertainers, some different people in the paranormal field. Tonight, we're not really talking paranormal, so to speak. But it's just so very interesting, I just couldn't pass it up. I've been trying to get Mr. Ryan Catoni to come on the radio for some time with me when I was doing the shows over at WARG Radio over at Argo High, and now here with Windy City, and it just wasn't panning out because he's very busy. He's hard to get a hold of. So finally, out of the clear blue, he called me a couple of weeks ago and said he would like to come on. And I says, absolutely. So we're going to speak with Mr. Ryan Catoni in just a moment. A couple of announcements for the Park District over where I'm at in Summit, over on Archer Road there in Summit, Illinois. We have a couple of paranormal trips and things coming up for the fall. Nothing too much for the summer. In the fall, we'll be doing a supernatural Lincoln tour type thing for Springfield, Illinois. That will be on September 17th. That one, I think it costs $120 they're charging for that, and that's with the lunch and the meal included and everything. And we're going to be taking you to the Lincoln home, the Lincoln Capitol, Lincoln Tomb, all the Lincoln sites, talking about Lincoln's ghost, where he haunts, and things like that. We'll be doing that. That'll be a nice trip. And then right after that one, a couple of days later, on September 20th, we'll be going out to the mansion in Geneva, Illinois. And it's an actual operating bed and breakfast with a lot of paranormal activity in it. And we'll be going there for dinner. And they give us a free run of the estate and the grounds, and we get to go around and do photos and do EVP recordings and whatever else people would like to do. And that will be that. And then in the fall, these are down in the future, in October, we've got 4 of the supernatural bus tours with the park, with Summit Park District. Those will be taking you around to all the local haunts in the area there, the Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, Resurrection, and some other stops and things, and we do lunch with that too. If you're interested in any of these and any more details on these, give the Park District a call over in Summit there at 708-496-1012, and they'll be happy to sign you up for any of these or answer any questions you may have about them. Sponsorship. We are looking for some sponsors here for Paranormal Radio. I had a couple of sponsors and we lost them, so anyone, if you'd like to sponsor our show here, send us a check and we will do some advertising for you over the airwaves here. We go up on YouTube, and we are also on, Jack FM? 80, what is that one there, John? I gotta look. It's 89.7. We are also on Jack FM, so we're actually on 2 stations. We go on YouTube, and you can hear us anytime on there. And then the Jack FM, we go on Wednesday mornings. They do the show there, don't they broadcast it?
You're going to be on...
When did he do it? It's like a couple of days after we do the broadcast tonight.
It's going to be on July the 24th, which is a Wednesday.
Yeah, so July 24th, Wednesday, we go on about 8:30 in the morning with them. 8 o'clock in the morning we go on with them. So I guess when people are commuting in their cars, going to work or whatever, they listen to Paranormal Radio. And then you can get us anytime you'd like on YouTube. Go up to YouTube, Paranormal Radio, and all the dates for the different shows will pop up on there, and that will be that. You can listen to us anytime you'd like. Mr. Ryan Catoni, welcome to Paranormal Radio, sir. I know this isn't really paranormal for you, so to speak, but the business you're in, people are dying to get in anyway, so
yes.
I'm sure you've heard all those jokes, right?
Yes,
yeah.
I have. I've heard a lot of them.
I'm sure you have, yeah. And you can't see Ryan, of course, this being radio, but if you see him, he looks like he's about 17 years old, and he is just so very serious in what he does, and he's also somewhat of a celebrity in the field of funeral directing. He's been made an appearance on WGN-TV on the new. Were you in the morning on there or in the afternoon?
9 o'clock at night.
Oh, they had you 9 o'clock at night. Mm-hmm. They gave you the good slots.
Yeah, the good one. That was nice.
Yeah, he was on there talking about that. He's been in the Sun Times on the newspaper. That's why he came to my attention about a year ago. I saw the article they did on him in the paper, and then he popped in at the subway where I work in Summit there on 63rd and Harlem, and I recognized him from the paper, and we talked a little bit. And like you said, this has been going on for about a year. So welcome to Paranormal Radio, sir. It's nice to have you with us finally.
Thank you very much. Sorry it's been so long to get me on here.
No, that's quite all right. I understand. Trust me, I've got like a list of people with the same thing. Yeah, it's tough to do. You know,
yes.
See, we pay such a big salary here. I just don't know why they're not beating. I don't know why they're not beating the door down to come on this show.
That's
You
true.
know, so
I see the line outside waiting to get in.
See how lucky you are? Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead, Ryan. Introduce yourself to us. Let us know exactly what you do, and then we'll go from there.
All right. My name is Ryan Catoni. I'm a licensed funeral director, And recently, I just opened up a new business in the Chicagoland area. It's about a year old, and it's flameless cremation. I'm the first one in Illinois and the fourth one in the U.S. offering the service right now. And basically, the difference between flameless cremation and flame cremation is that this process uses water instead of fire. So there's no air pollutants being released into the air. There's no harmful fossil fuels being burned. So it's a much greener and gentler form of cremation, basically. And the family receives ashes just like they would with normal cremation. And they can bury, they can scatter, or they can keep at home. So it's basically the same end result, just using a different process to get to it.
Boy, about 10 questions right as you were speaking came into my head. Now, you don't burn in the traditional way of cremation, is where the body is set on fire and you collect the ashes in the urn, and there's your remains of your loved one. Do you do it with water? How exactly do you cremate with water?
Basically, what happens is the body is placed into a special machine made just for this process. And it uses water, temperature, and a little alkali. So the process is 95% water, 5% alkali, and it just gently circulates over the body till all that's left is the bone remain and any metal implants. So if the person had a knee joint replacement or a pacemaker, those would be left over, and those can be recycled, basically. So it's
my goodness!
Yeah, so it's a true.
They can recycle the pacemaker from a corpse. Like
yeah,
that?
basically what they do is I belong to the University of Michigan. They are working with FFA or FDA or whatever, and they look at them, they revamp them, and send them to third world countries that people can't afford them, and they try to use them down there. So,
really?
Yes.
Wow. Now, this whole process, the pacemaker and everything is in the person while this is going on.
That's all in there.
And this doesn't harm it at all?
No, it doesn't harm the machine, unlike flame cremation.
I was going to say, if you were, it would ruin it totally. You wouldn't be able to recycle any of this.
Actually, you have to take out pacemakers before cremation, which is, a lot of people don't know that. But the batteries will actually explode in the cremation chamber. So they have to take them out before the cremation, where in this, it can't harm the machine, basically.
So, I guess, now, when you cremate, though, you don't really embalm, do you?
You could still have a full wake and traditional funeral service and things of that nature. So, and same with this process.
Unless the law changed my understanding of it was if you wanted to have a visitation, we have a body on wake for a visitation, you have to embalm.
That's not actually true, but it's many funeral homes policies that if they show a person for a wake, that they do embalm them and things of that nature, just so that it does slow down the basically decomposition and it preserves them. So. But that's that's one of the myths in the funeral industry is that it.
I always thought that. All my life I always thought that. So you can't do a visitation and not have the body embalmed.
If you find a funeral home that will let you, you can. But most funeral homes won't allow that.
So it's not. There's nothing in the law. It's it just varies home to home.
Yeah, it's just mostly the funeral home's policy.
So what is your policy on that?
They don't have to be embalmed.
You'll do it either way.
Yep, I could do it either way.
Okay, all right.
So if they want it, just do it direct. Yep.
Yeah. Now, I'm assuming if the body is not embalmed, you wouldn't have like a 2-day wake or whatever. It would probably be a faster service, much faster.
Yeah, definitely.
Like 1 day overnight and that would be buried, or even hours just in that. So many people now, I remember like when I was younger, so many of the wakes were like 2- and 3-day affairs, for the family, that type of thing. Now most of them just do like one night. And
usually they're one night, usually from 3 to 8 or 4 to 8 or something of that nature.
Yeah, some of them now are even doing like same day. They do like a same day visitation. From there they go right to the funeral and to the church, and that's it. It's done. Yeah.
It's definitely changing. The business is
certainly
definitely
has,
changed. So
a lot of this, I'm sure, has to do with changing laws in the church too. The Catholic Church changes in burial customs, and the church now does allow cremation. At one time, Catholic Church did not. Cremations were taboo with the church.
I believe in '64 they actually changed it for cremation. They started allowing it. So
that's longer than I thought.
Yeah, it's been a long time, though. It's just people are starting to realize it now, basically.
Yeah, I thought that was relatively recent. Yeah. Now, someone like you look like you're about 17 years old. I say this to you every time I see you. You're very young. Now, this is obvious. How old are you exactly?
I just turned 24 in May.
24, so you're very young still.
Yeah,
you're young. Now, how long have you been in the funeral directing business?
I've been in it about 3 or 4 years now. So not
so
that
you
long.
did this like right out of high school?
Actually right out of high school. I went to regular college, got my general education classes, and then I went to a mortuary school that just teaches you just the funeral industry. Graduated and just went to work at a funeral home and got licensed. So.
And then you started your own business now too?
Yeah. I started. I stumbled upon this process, and being a funeral director, I did see cremation firsthand. Once you really see it and realize what actually happens, it's not the prettiest of sights. Once you really realize it. So I came across this, and my grandfather was cremated. So it never really sat well with me, but I seen this, and hands down, you couldn't.
Now, are family allowed to watch the cremation?
Yeah, if they want to, they can witness their loved one being placed into the machine.
But you don't actually see the body burning?
No, you don't see it. No, you
that.
don't usually see that.
No.
Just it being placed into the machine, basically. So.
Now, for being such a young person at this, is this something you always wanted to do, or did you just kind of decide this like last year, or senior in high school?
No, it was actually junior year in high school. My grandfather lived with us, my other grandfather, and he passed away in a nursing home, so I didn't really get to see him go in another state. He was at my uncle's house. And basically, his wake and funeral really helped me with the closure and the grieving process. The funeral director was very helpful, and he was a very nice guy. And I figured if I could do it for other people, why not? So that's kind of how I stumbled into the profession, and then started doing research about it, and every time I liked it more and more. So
yeah, good for you. Very nice, very commendable. Yeah, and you're doing very well at it too. Like I said,
yes, I am.
You're somewhat of a celebrity at this.
Yes.
Now, how did you stumble upon the Aqua? Now, your company, I guess you call it a company. It's Aqua Green.
Yeah, Aqua Green Dispositions.
That's what it's called. And this is with the water process of cremation. Now, how did you stumble into it? And you are the only one in the state of Illinois that does this.
I'm the only one.
Are you nationwide? Are your other Aqua Green Dispositions?
No, I'm my own company right now.
Okay.
I'm it. I'm not a franchise in any way. I'm my own establishment.
Now, do you have this all patented and everything? So no one else can grab
I do
your
have
idea?
I have a lot of copyrights and trademarks and things of that nature.
Yeah, so you don't want anybody else grabbing your idea there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, how did you stumble into this idea? I mean, it's a very to me, it's a fascinating process that you have a cremation with water.
Yeah, it was. I was reading a funeral magazine, and I found that the Mayo Clinic was actually using this process. So a very well established research facility. They were using it for their cadaver program. So people that donated their bodies to science and things of that nature, they would basically, instead of using flame cremation, they would use this. And at that time, there was only one person in the funeral industry that was doing it, and he was a very nice gentleman. And he talked to me a lot about it, and I said, I think I want to do this. So I kind of just started working to change the laws and legislation and things of that nature, and then opened up about a year ago. So
yeah. Now, have you had, in the year's time you've been doing this, have you had many people?
Oh, yeah, I've done, businesses very well. I get a lot of green people, the eco-friendly people that don't want to be...
You get a lot of green people. Jeez, the thought just came into my mind there. I'm like...
I get a lot of...
this is Paranormal Radio, but I just didn't want to get too morbid about it.
I get a lot of eco-friendly people, I should have said, that don't want to take up burial space or release a lot of pollutants into the air, so that's one of the customers. But my biggest clientele is actually people that want cremation, but they don't like the idea of burning. They say they think of hell, and they have all these other theories, and they don't like it, so they say the water is a lot gentler on the mind, so they like my process a lot better. So.
I guess you finally decided when you come to that stage of life, or death, I should say, when you're leaving life, you come to that stage where you find out which is actually worse, being burnt or being drowned.
Yeah, well,
as the old thing goes, people always say, what would you rather be, burned to death or drowned,
Yeah, well, this is gentler, I think, than flame cremation.
It seems to be a much less harsher process, I
think it's easier on the mind, so. But,
Very, very interesting process. Very fascinating, And for someone like yourself, a young person going into this and doing this kind of thing, now you are located, if they want to get a hold of you for this and they want to find out more about this, and maybe some people would be interested in this type of burial, and I'm sure you do the pre-arrangements and all that kind of thing.
I do all that.
Where can we get a hold of Aqua Green Dispositions?
I'm located in South Holland, Illinois, but I go basically all over Illinois. And I have a website, aquagreendispositions.com, or you can reach me at 708-606-0211, and that's my cell phone, and that comes to me directly. So,
okay.
In a couple of ways.
Yeah. Fascinating stuff, Now, I have to ask you.
Yes. Here it is.
I have to ask you this, because like I say, this is paranormal. Have you ever had anybody... We've been telling some of these stories on the air. Have you ever had anybody actually not dead on the table? And
No.
No.
I was actually thinking about that, and I never had a paranormal activity at any time in my funeral industry, so I thought that was... I hear a lot of rumors about stuff, but I never experienced anything myself. So.
Yeah, we have some stories, because where I'm at in Summit there, we at one time, Summit is a very small town, and at one time we actually had 3 operating funeral parlors in Summit. The Liznicki Funeral Home, the Sobiesk Funeral Home, and the Foran's Funeral Home, which is the only one still left. Foran's is still there. And we always had this. There was always the story floating around about a guy that passed out at the bar, and they took him across the street to the Soviet funeral home, laid him out on a table, and covered him up with a sheet. An hour later, they were surprised to find him sitting back at the bar there, come back to life,
Maybe the bar was that good.
So these stories float around. My brother Ray, my older brother, was actually thinking of going into the same thing, the funeral directing business. But what happened to him? He had asthma, and I guess some of the chemicals or something he couldn't take, like the different formaldehyde and different things they used, and that he just couldn't take that, so he had to get out of that, because he would have been another one doing that too. But then he went into the medical field, so he wanted doing that. Yeah.
Some of the chemicals are pretty harsh that they use, but they're trying to make them a lot better now. So
now they also do a process, and I think this is a California only thing. Where else would you do something like this? Maybe you might know about this, 'cause I'm sure you know all this stuff, where they actually do mummification.
I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, this one they do in California, and you can be mummified if you want to. They will do it in the old process with the natron and the chemical and the whole thing, as they did in ancient Egypt, and wrap you with the linen, the whole thing. And it's about $30,000 they will do this for, and you can be mummified and preserved for life. So if you don't want to be cremated, by fire or by water or traditional burial, you can be mummified. And I don't know what they do with you then.
I don't know.
I don't know what you do. You go. I guess after you're mummified, I don't know if they put you in the ground or traditional burial, if they stand you up in the living room, or what they do with you. I don't know.
I don't know. You got a TV partner there, then.
Yeah. California only they would do this. And I say it's now when I found out about this a couple of years back, it was about $30,000 to do this.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. Now I'm sure with inflation and whatever, it's probably gone up. Unless maybe they do a cheaper
version
embalming, where they don't wrap you with linen, maybe they wrap you with cotton or something. I don't know. Some different process of doing it. Yeah. Fascinating. Yeah, very, very fascinating for someone your age, young, going into this. So you went into this like at 18, 19 years old?
Yeah, I was in mortuary school when I was 20 years old. I couldn't have a drink with all the other classmates, so I got teased about that a lot.
Now, how long does it take to go through mortuary school?
You have to have 1 year of general college. You have to have like 32 gen ed classes, and it's there's a couple options for mortuary school, but the one I did was a year long. So I went from September to September with no breaks or anything. So
wow, okay.
It was a full year long, and
so it's a crash course.
Yeah, it's real quick, and then you have to work at a funeral home for a year before you can get licensed and things of that nature.
Oh, so you have to do like an apprenticeship with someone else
first? Yeah, I
first.
had to do an apprenticeship as
an
well.
Experienced guy. Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. We need to. What do you got? A question there, John?
Yes, I do. Ryan, you said before that when you do a cremation by fire, the entire body gets burned, right?
Yep.
Okay. Now, I think I heard you say that with this new process that you invented, does the entire body get burned, or what happens to the bones?
Basically, what happens is the water and alkali solution just gently breaks down the body. So our muscles are made of proteins, and the solution just breaks the proteins down into amino acids, which are the smallest form that make up our body. And that's basically dissolved in the water. So it's just taking us and breaking us down to our most basic elements that you can't even see. And the bone remain is left and processed the same way crematory does it, and given back to the family in an urn.
So is there something else then they have to do to the bones to get them
to... Yeah, basically after cremation, a lot of people don't know this, but the bones are more fragments, and they put them in a machine that breaks it down to more of an ash, and they put it in the urn and give it to the family back.
I see.
So, and I do the same thing. Same machine that a regular crematory would.
And then you just take the urn with the remains. You can, put it on the fireplace mantle or have it buried wherever you choose to do.
Yeah, anything you want.
And there again, too, with the Catholic Church, they are changing some laws with that, where they are allowing like multiple burials in a plot. If you have like one body buried, you can put a cremated remain in with it.
You can.
And different things they're doing. They're changing things around a little bit. I guess what they might be trying to do is go a little eco-friendly too, so to speak, to save some space in that, conserve space, because it does take up a lot of.
It does.
I always thought the process they used in New Orleans, which they've used, for hundreds of years, I thought was the best eco-friendly way they do it. You have one tomb, you put the remains in with the casket. After 1 year and 1 day, in the heat and the humidity down there, everything just disintegrates, and there's a little slit in the back of the tomb, and they have like a rake. And you go in with the rake and just push everything back, and it goes in the slit, and it's down in the bottom.
Really?
And then after 1 year and 1 day, you can put another casket in with another remains in it. So that's why you look like on those old cemeteries they have there. And I've talked about that before, because one time I did a whole show on, part of a whole show anyway, on New Orleans cemeteries and ghosts and all that kind of thing. And you'll see these old cemeteries they have there, and the tombs, they're all those above ground type tomb things, and like the little mausoleum sort of things. And you'll see, 50 names on there. You think, well, how could this many people be buried in this one little small house? This is how they do it.
Wow.
So it's a very ecologically friendly way of doing it. You know, so you don't have all these separate burial plots and all this, and that's what they do. Now you do run into a problem with this though, because like I say, it's 1 year and 1 day. Then you push the remains back and you're ready for the next family member to go in, whoever passes away. But what do you do? Like grandma dies, and then 6 months later, say grandpa passes away. Now what do we do? It hasn't been 1 year and 1 day. You have a temporary vault you buy, and you put grandpa's remains in there for the rest of the grandma's 6 months. Then after that, you take her, push her back into the slit, she goes down, and whatever is left of grandpa's goes in, and he's in there with the family too. So it's a very it's a very economical way of doing it too. So different parts of the country, different burial customs and different stuff, you know, different areas. But they've been doing this in New Orleans, well, out of necessity, almost since the city was founded, because they just couldn't do ground burials with the water table being so high in that down there.
I know in the Caribbean they do that too. They build them up instead of going down with them.
Yeah, many places where you have tropical climates where you have, they may do it in other cities in the south too, you know, where they have a lot of rainfall, a lot of tropical, you know, tropical climate, that kind of thing. Because they have problems with that. You just can't do it. You know, you bury someone, and 2 weeks later you get a rainstorm, and up comes Uncle Elmer, you know, with the casket and everything, you know, bobbing up to the surface. Yeah, right. Or back down on Bourbon Street. See, there is humor in funeral directing too, isn't there?
You gotta enjoy life. You gotta have a sense of humor.
It's a serious business, but nonetheless, it can be. I don't want to say fun, but it can have humor to it. You know, it does.
But
now, I'm sure you have to go for some sort of psychology too in this, and grievance counseling. That jar of dealing with bereaved people, and some people handle grief, I'm sure you found out, much better than other people do. Some people just fall all to pieces, and other people handle it very rationally, and they think about it, and how much is this costing, and how much is that costing, and other people just like, yes, just do it, I don't care, you know, we want the best for, you know, mother, you know, whatever.
You go during the mortuary school, they teach you about that, about grievance and counseling, and it's very true. Everybody grieves differently. I found out some people want to have a big party and just, you know, celebrate everything, and other people are, you know, still traditional, wear the black and everything. So it all depends on the family, but as long as they're happy, that's all that matters, you know, as long as it's easier for them. So mourning
at one time, well, I shouldn't say at one time, mourning has always been big business, although we've lightened up a lot with it. Like we no longer do the black for a year and all this, you know, like they did in the Victorian era, you know, where it was but of course in an age where you're, you know, out of 6 children, 3 would die, you know, so death was a big part of living as well. So mourning would be a big part of that. So you did have a lot of mourning customs that went along with that, you know, that type of thing.
That is true. It has changed. A lot of people don't like talking about death anymore. It's everybody. I do small business trade shows just to promote the process. And they see what I do, and they turn their head and walk the quickest way, the other way over, and say, "Get away from me!" And,
but you know, eventually, sooner or later, with the exception of myself, who is immortal, we all are, or everyone at one point or another is going to need the services of a funeral director in a home. And
unfortunately, that's the only guarantee in life. I say is
death and taxes. I think Benjamin Franklin said that. The two certainties in life are death and taxes.
That's very true.
And we don't want to talk about taxes, because we all just got our tax bills here in Cook County, so we don't want to talk about those. I am for the prearrangements. I just had someone, like a week ago, I was talking about this, and said, yes, I'm going to have a funeral director come on the show. We're going to talk on the radio about that. We got on the subject, and she was asking me, she says, her mother wants to go and have like the prearrangement for the funeral. And she says, this is really kind of freaking me out. I don't like this. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, it really is a good thing. My father was very ill. And we knew the end was coming and this kind of thing. And I talked to my mom about this. And I says, you know, we really should go and do something. Because what happens is you're very bereaved and you're very grief-stricken. And then you do something. And then after it's all over with, 2 weeks later, you think, geez, you know, we should have got the Sacred Heart instead of the praying hands on the mass card. Or we should have did this. Or we should have. So this way here, you're kind of thinking it rationally through in that. And we did that. And it was the best thing that we ever did. It really was. It was great. Not realizing it at the time when my dad passed away in May. 4 months later, my mother passed away. So I had the experience already. I was ready for it because, you know, I just went through this 4 months ago, and we had a. But with us, we had a little different situation. My mom and dad, whenever they would get into an argument about anything, it would always came to the cemetery. Because my father wanted to be buried in the ground, in a traditional burial in the ground, in his plot, 6 feet under. My mother liked the idea of the crypt in the mausoleum, you know. So the Resurrection Cemetery over on Archer Road there where we live, and half the family is in Resurrection now, they came up with this thing called the Garden Mausoleum. And it was the best thing. Boy, they did me such a favor. They don't know what a favor they did me. Because they showed these, we were doing this pre-arrangement. I took my mother and I showed her this, and I said, Ma, this is perfect. This way you've got your crypt, it's outside, he's got his outside. This is a perfect compromise for both of you. She says, yes, I like it, let's do it. So it was a great thing that they did there. It was really, really great. And just to kind of give you an idea of the inflation, this was 25 years ago when I bought these 2 vaults. and they paid $3,500 a piece
Wow,
for them
that's
now I heard someone's just went to buy them, and they said they're about $11,000 for these things 25 years later. So that's why now when you do a pre-arrangement on a funeral and everything, you're kind of locked in at that price.
Yeah, that's one of the nice things about pre-arranging things.
We had an uncle, Edmund, I think this was 3 or 4 years ago in our family, that passed away, a bachelor uncle, and just a niece. He had a niece left, and that's it. And the niece is handicapped, and she's actually in a home. And what we did, of course, is we arranged my brother and I went and arranged all his funeral and everything like that, and then we did hers too. And it was good because now it's all set. Something happens to her, this is set. She goes, she's by her parents, she's buried there. So it's good to do this ahead of time. I really recommend people doing this.
It's easier on the loved ones, and it gives you more focus to grieve and think about that person.
For number one, for the economical reason, you're locked in at the price now. 10 years from now or 20 years from now, whenever, it's like double. Like I just said, 25 years ago I paid $3,500 for these crypts. Now they're $11,000. So big difference in price. Big jump in price on this. And then also too, like I say, I think the family, you're thinking a little more about it. You're thinking, oh, we like the red roses, or we like this, or whatever. Because sometimes you're just so many things you're thinking about. What am I going to wear? What are we doing with this? Where should the car go past the house? Should it do this? Should it do that? And then when it's all over with, it's done. You can't go back and redo it. And then people, many people I've heard say that we forgot to drive the hearse past the house for one last visit to the house, or we forgot to do this or that. So I think the pre-arrangement is. Do you get many people that come and want to do this?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. And most of my people, I do direct flameless cremation, so that means no services or anything. It's just pick up of the deceased, do the actual flameless cremation process, file all the paperwork, give them death certificates. So that's mostly my business, is the ones that want to take the urn and go to a banquet hall or a restaurant of the loved one's favor and have a little celebration there, basically. But I do get a lot of pre-arrangements, which is nice.
Am I being unfair in asking you, what is the cost of doing the cremation as opposed to a traditional?
A traditional burial could range, depending on, like you said, cemetery, where you go and everything. For direct flameless cremations, it's $1,995, so $5 under $2,000.
Yeah.
And that includes you get a select an urn, basically any urn you want, and things of that nature. So.
Do I get a discount if I want to do this since I had you on the radio, or do I?
We'll talk off radio.
Do I get like another $10 knocked off, and I get the better urn or whatever?
We'll work something out. So.
No, I'm kidding you, of course. No, I would never do that to anybody. Yes, I would. But I'm sure you get a lot of your friends that come to you.
I do.
Hey, can you give me a deal on the funeral? That kind of thing. If you're an auto mechanic, you get the same thing. Any trade you're in, you get that. Yeah. The old saying goes, "Don't do business with your friends and family."
Yeah, that's very true. But no, we're a small family-ran business. My mom and dad help me out, so that's kind of a nice, my unpaid help, which is, I got to send a thank you to them because they're a huge part of the business and everything.
Well, go ahead, thank them on the radio.
Thank you, Mom and Dad. I greatly appreciate everything. So, but no, they're a huge help, and they're there every day with me, so it's nice.
So you're kind of like a family-run business.
Yeah, we're family-ran. I'm the only licensed funeral director, and then my mom does a lot of the paperwork and things of that nature. So.
Oh yeah, there's a whole ton of that stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of paperwork.
So now, what does Dad do? Does he go out and dig the graves?
No, he's just there for moral support, and
you need that too.
Yeah, he likes to talk about it. So that's
now, do you have your own funeral home and everything?
I have a standalone building in South Holland, which is I have a nice office and then the actual machine in the back of it. So, but it's a standalone building. I try to make it as respectful as I can and nice as I can. So,
and you got your own funeral, like for a wake, and that you have your own funeral.
No,
home?
I don't do. I don't offer any of that.
You don't. Oh, no, I see. You just do this.
I just do the directs.
So then you have to collaborate with someone else and have the arrange. Oh, I see.
So
how that works.
I just do directs. So I deal with families if they don't want to have any services, and if they do, I tell them to go to a funeral home, and then they can still use my service. I work with any funeral home in the state of Illinois.
Okay. Will most homes do that? Because a lot of homes do their own embalming and their own thing right there in the parlor.
But a lot of funeral homes don't have their own crematories. There's a lot of third-party crematories, which a lot of people don't know. But there's only a couple crematories in the state, or in the city, I should say. Yeah. And since I'm the only one, they kind of work with me, and they're really happy about it.
I imagine the crematories would be under state laws and things too, like with the pollution devices and all that kind of thing.
Illinois EPA watches them very carefully.
Over by Resurrection Cemetery, which I just mentioned, over on Archer Road there, in it's actually in Summit, I think it's in Justice, where it's actually at there where I'm at. They opened up a pet crematorium.
Yeah, that's a new thing that a lot of people are saying.
A pet cemetery and a pet crematorium. Yeah, and they actually will do a wake for the pet and everything, and the whole shebang and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the new thing. A lot of funeral industries say they're getting into.
Darn it! I never thought of that. Geez, tonight we're going to do some record stuff. I had this old recording of a song called Fido is a Hot Dog Now. And that would have been a great one to play because Fido was actually cremated and he went to hell. He didn't go to heaven.
That's a good one. I never heard that song before.
Yeah, it's called Fido is a Hot Dog
Fido
Now.
is a Hot Dog. I'll have to look that up.
I think of these things, after it's all over with and done. We will take a little break right now. I do a couple of little different things with this show, and from time to time, if you've listened to us before, I like to do things with the opera, because I'm a kind of an opera buff myself, and I collect a lot of these old opera recordings. Tonight I've got a recording I'm going to play. This one goes way back. This is about 1902 recording, and it's of a tenor. His name was Francesco Timagno, and Mr. Timagno was actually a tenor that how should I say this? He kind of predecessor for Enrico Caruso, who much more people would know the name of Caruso, much more famous tenor, the tenor of his day, much more famous recording artist. He had a little bit longer span of recording in that. Timagno did his recordings when it was still very primitive and very new medium, and he also did them a little past his prime. In 1902, when he made these recordings, he was 54 years of age. And he passed away with a year after he did them. So we do have his voice preserved, where so many of the other greats of the golden age of opera are gone, and we have no recordings of them. We do have some recordings of some of these people, and the ones I like to bring attention are ones that are known to haunt opera houses. Opera houses are famous for hauntings. Theaters, opera houses, if you've listened here before, we've had different folks on that do these investigations in different theaters and different old vaudeville houses and things, and some of these stars love to haunt the opera houses they're in. Francesco Timagno, like I said, was the reigning tenor, bel canto Italian tenor of his day. A very famous voice, a very well-known voice, a very popular tenor, but he didn't live too much past the turn of the century. He died in 1904, 1905. So then Caruso became the reigning tenor, and he actually originated, this is Francesco Timagno, originated the role of Otello. The role was written and originated, he performed it first, and the recording we have tonight is The Death of Otello. Kind of a good one to have for this show. It's The Death of Otello. The recording is, it's a very early recording, like I say, done with piano accompaniment. And these recordings, it was a 10-inch disc. These sold in 1902 for $5 each, which was quite a lot of money. A lot of people in those days made $5 a week for your salary. So the Victor Record Company, who recorded these, was obviously aiming this at a higher-end market. They were looking for a higher-end market. People that were looking for something different. They were looking for these artists that were not readily available for recording, that you couldn't get, or you may not have ever been able to afford tickets to an opera house to hear their performance. So he made these records when he was kind of in semi-retirement. Due to heart ailments and things, he had to retire from performing. He did do some concerts and things afterwards, but not too many. And he did these recordings when his voice was a little past its prime, so it wasn't the very robust tenor that people had known on the stage in years past. But nonetheless, we do have these recordings of his voice, and I will play this for you now. This is Morto de Otello, performed with piano accompaniment by the famed Italian tenor Francesco Timagno.
casa tua vita e in cielo assorta. Desdemona, Desdemona,
That was the voice of Francesco Tamagno performing Morto de Otello from the opera that he originated the role of, Otello. And just in case you weren't able to figure that out at the end with that, that's Otello dying. That's his dying breath. That's where he dies at the end of the aria, the death of Otello. And ironically, after Mr. Tamagno made this batch of recordings, he himself passed away about a year later. So we did capture his voice. We do have some of his performances here. Now, to get to the haunts, which is what we do here on Paranormal Radio, Mr. Tamagno likes to haunt some of the famous opera houses in Europe where he performed in his life. La Scala in Italy, Covent Garden in London, where he's often mistaken, when people do see him, he's mistaken for the ghost of Enrico Caruso, who likes to haunt the same opera houses. But then people realize this gentleman had a beard, Caruso did not, so they know who he was then, to make the distinction. And these stars, these opera stars that haunt these houses, love to haunt backstage. For whatever reason, they like the backstage areas like that. Maybe that was where they relaxed or whatever just before they went on to sing their little hearts away, and that may have been their moments of relaxation before they went on stage and gave it their all. So this was Tamagno performing this at 54 years of age, which is past your prime in opera, but nonetheless you do get somewhat of a feel for his voice and for what he did. Personal life, he had performed all his life. He came from a large family in Italy, was not married, but he did have a daughter out of wedlock, of which he had full custody of. The daughter did study opera. She did go on to have a career as a soprano herself, but not quite so famous as her father. Her father had the much more prestigious career, which is often the case in offspring. Caruso did the same thing. He had a son, Enrico Caruso Jr., that went on to have an opera career, but nothing like his father's. So there is that. And like you say, these stars do love to haunt the houses that they performed in life, and Mr. Tamagno is no exception. So that was that. Okay, back to funeral directing. See, this is appropriate. We played the death of Otello,
yeah, sure, yeah.
And then we get back to real life death. Is that doesn't make sense, does it? Real life death.
No, never heard that one before.
Yeah, that's a different expression. Yeah. Well, like I said about the funeral business, it's very booming because people are always dying to get in, right? And you never get any complaints from the people you handle, right?
No, that is true.
They're very quiet.
Yeah,
You don't
if
get
you
any
do, you
complaints
got
from
problems.
Yeah, you don't get any requests from them, any special.
Nope.
No, nothing like that. Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. Treat them with respect, treat them
Yep.
with dignity, and that's it. They don't talk back to you.
Nope.
And you don't talk disturbing to them.
No.
Because they
No,
don't do
no,
anything.
no.
They don't do anything to misbehave at that point.
No,
so,
that's true.
Yeah. And they're very
nice.
cooperative.
Yeah, they are. Sometimes they are, but most of the time they are.
Yeah, there are things I'm sure that come up in
Yeah.
the embalming business,
Yeah,
like with
that's
anything
true.
else.
Yeah.
Now, this process that you do, the water process of cremation, can family members witness this?
Yeah, they can watch their loved one going into the machine, but it's a all stainless steel machine, so you can't really see too much after that. But they can witness their loved one being placed into the machine and everything.
Have you had, in the time you've been doing this, have you had anyone request
Yes,
that?
actually, I had one family that took me up on the offer, basically, and they just said they wanted to make sure that was Grandma going in. And
That
I
was
said,
indeed her, and they didn't get the wrong ashes or whatever.
Yeah, and I said that's perfectly fine, as long as you guys want to be here, that's fine with me. So, but.
So you're very accommodating with that.
Yes, I try to accommodate everybody's requests.
And you're a nice
so.
guy.
Yeah,
so
I try.
what the heck,
Yeah.
Let us have your number again and where you're located, so
Yeah.
if people want to get a hold of you, and
Yeah,
go over by Mr. Ryan Catoni
yeah.
there, and and have a talk about pre-arrangements here. And
I'm located in South Holland, Illinois, which is right off the Bishop Ford at like 159th Street. And my website is aquagreendispositions.com, and my phone number is 708-606-0211. So, and you can email me, and there's a direct link on the email or on the website to email me directly and things of that nature. So
now, in a couple of days, when Mr. John I always forget his name. John Shikanda posts our shows. He does a great job. John, thank you so much for doing the shows for us, the editing and everything you do for these. And he gets these ready for us in a couple of days, and we go up on YouTube. So you will be forever on YouTube now.
Oh, that's nice.
Your number and everything will be on there forever.
Good.
So
I don't think I'm on YouTube yet, so that's a good thing.
You are? I think you're up on there.
Am
Aren't you
I?
on something?
No,
I think you have something on there. Maybe your WGN thing is on there.
Yeah. I'll have to look.
So that will be that. Okay. Now, I had something else I was going to ask you, and then in doing the commercial, I forgot what I was going to say. Let me think here for a second. Oh, this is bad. To do this on airtime. Oh, yes. Now, the deal with this is now, you do the cremation process and everything there, and then the body is transferred and taken to a funeral home for visitation. Now, do you find funeral homes kind of cooperative about this? Because most of them like to do their own embalming themselves.
Yeah, well, with this, they do the embalmings before this, and they have the wakes and everything, and this is basically the final process. But funeral homes, it's just like cremation. They're pretty open to it as long as the family wants it.
That's true, because if they don't do a cremation, they have to send it somewhere else.
Yeah, so they're very accommodating as
some
well,
families
too.
still do visitation with that.
Oh, yeah.
One of the strangest wakes services memorial services I went to ever was years ago, a coworker lost a son, and he died somewhere in the South, in Alabama or something, and he was buried there. So the mother wanted a service here, since the son, their parents were divorced. Father lived down in Alabama, and she lived up here. So he was buried in Alabama, the son was, and she wanted a service here. So she had a service, and we all thought, how are you going to have a service here? He's already been buried and everything. So she went and she actually, I don't know how she did this, she rented the funeral home or whatever you do, and they just had pictures. They had like a board where all his pictures, and you went there, and it was the freakiest thing, because you went for a memorial service, and there's no body, there's no casket, there's nothing. There's a board with all the pictures on it, and there's people sitting there, in black and crying and everything. And I thought, geez, this is kind of one of the strangest ones I ever went to.
That's some of the cremations, they do that too. If they don't want to put the urn out there or something, they just put the pictures up there and things of that nature. That's not too uncommon. But
most of the wakes you go to now have the pictures up anyway.
Yeah, that's
a person's life. They have these little electronic things now, and they have all their pictures are flashing by of when they were in the army in 1942 and everything, and all this stuff, which is kind of nice.
Yeah,
because you like to remember your life.
It's a nice replay.
Death is a celebration of life. It's a celebration of what you did. Hopefully, hopefully you didn't miff off too many people in life, and
hopefully there's people there.
Yeah. Of course, at my funeral, my wake, there'll be 2 people. I'll have trouble finding pallbearers for me. No, I'll get all the people that were guests on Paranormal Radio, and they will come. Hopefully.
That sounds good.
We can't hear you, John.
Wrong microphone. That's where we go. I says, when I die, all they have to do is get a phone booth.
if you can find one, those are kind of. If they even know what a phone booth is now, Superman these days would have a hard time, wouldn't he? He can't find a phone booth to do his changes in. Yeah.
I was gonna say, you don't see too many phone booths anymore.
No, not anymore. You don't even see payphones hardly anymore.
I was gonna say, no, everybody has cell phones now. So.
Yeah, they've kind of gone the way of the Victrola and the buggy whip. You just don't see them around anymore. We've progressed. We have about 15 minutes left here. Any closing things you'd like to say here? We kind of covered it all. Anything I missed that you want to mention?
I'm not trying to change anybody's mind. If you're a burial person, I greatly respect that, and I think you should have some ideas of what you want.
It's just a choice. It's something extra you're offering.
I'm not trying to change anybody's mind, just offering them more options, basically. It is a very difficult time, and right now there's only basically 2, so I'm just trying to offer people a more green and gentler choice, basically.
And you are the only one in the state.
Yeah, the only one in the state.
You're the only one that does this in South Holland.
Yeah, there's only 4 of us right now in the U.S. that
only
offer.
Only 4 in the whole U.S.?
Yeah, Florida, Maine, and Minnesota, and then here in Illinois,
Well, it's different, like a southern state, a very Midwest, and the other 3 are in Midwest.
Midwest, yes.
Oh, no, Maine would be New England.
New England,
So you got one in the South, one in New England, and then 2 Midwestern ones here.
And there's about 20 other states putting in legislation right now, so it's definitely coming a long way since when it started. So
yeah, they're certainly doing a lot of different things now with the funerals and the wakes and the services. Yeah. They even do this thing. I think this is also a California thing, which you may know this more than I would, where they do like a drive-by. They have a drive window.
Yeah, actually,
and they have the body displayed in the window, and you can actually go and pay respects like a drive-by.
There's actually some funeral homes in the South Side that had that. I don't know if they still have that, but yeah, I heard that they did have that.
So you can do like a drive-by, like you're going through the window at McDonald's or something, and you see the body laying in the window there, and you pay your respects and you drive
just
through.
Keep driving through.
Boy, Lord, have mercy.
Yeah,
at the end of someone's life, if you can't get out of your car and go in and just give a few minutes to show respect, that's pretty bad, you know. I know we're all in a hurry these days, but
that is true. Everybody's in a hurry now. So.
Interesting stuff. It's interesting just to see how this has changed within a few short years, not in all that length of a time, how things have changed.
Yeah, cremation's been around for about 30 years, and when it first came out, it was, kind of taboo. Nobody really talked about it. But now
it was like I said with the church. It was they were very against cremation. But now dust to dust, ashes to ashes. The body has to go through a normal process. Cremating, you just don't do that.
But now cremation rate's about 50%, about 48% nationwide. So it's definitely.
I think some people, when you think about this, not to get morbid about it, some people are just appalled by the process of their body just sitting there and decomposing, whatever. So they'd rather just say, "I'm done. This is it. I'm a pile of ashes, and I'm through. I don't have to think of myself in that way."
And with people being more mobile, not that many people go to the cemetery, unfortunately, anymore.
That's true. People don't. Once upon a time, I remember visitation at cemetery was a big deal. You were a picnic basket. You were there all day cleaning around the graves and planting flowers and everything. And people don't do all this anymore.
No, it's once in a holiday or on their birthday, if that even. So it's. I think just people are being more mobile, moving around, and things of that nature. It's right.
I have so many friends and family in Resurrection Cemetery over there. If I start doing visitation, I try to get over there a few times a year and do it. Oops, geez, that was me hitting the mic there with my hand. If I get over there and start visiting graves, I could literally be there for the whole day. Just visiting, going from person to person, and this one here and that one there and everything else, and just tracking them all down and getting maps where they all are and everything. So it's just an interesting process. And Ryan, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it.
It was a long time coming, but it was well worth it. I enjoyed having you on, and I learned some things myself, and I hopefully our listeners did too. And like I said, it was a little different. It wasn't the normal paranormal thing that we do here, but I just felt it was so interesting. I felt it was worth bringing on the radio.
Well, thank you.
I'm going to give you a story now. I don't normally like to read things. I like to do them from memory because I remember so many stories. But this one was a book given to me by one of the ladies that goes on a couple of our tours with us at Summit. And she gave me this book, and I started reading some of the stories, and I found this one. It's called The Chapel of the Cross. And I'll skip on this and abbreviate it a bit. This one starts off, it says, 4 college friends usually stopped at a chapel. It's called the Chapel of the Cross. They stopped at this chapel for a few minutes to stretch their legs, but on one moonlit evening, they found themselves actors in an otherly world drama. On this night, the young men separated to do a bit of informal sleuthing. They were doing a little investigating. One walked around and behind the church, another peered into the side entrance, and a third was near the chapel's front entrance. The driver recalled the events later in a newspaper article years later and was trying to read the old tombstones in the graveyard with a flashlight. I don't know if you want to really be in a cemetery at night like that. Probably not the safest place to be, for that matter. Each of them then heard or saw something disquieting. One looked upon quickly as he heard the tower bell ring. Another caught a fleeting glimpse of a face in one of the windows. The other 2 men on different sides of the church heard organ chords from the organ in the church. They also saw the heavy front door open and a figure appear, and then it passed directly through the locked iron gates that protect the wood door and vanished on a path. Each of the students described what they had seen, but none was absolutely ready to believe the others, because they were all in different spots. They were all comparing stories, and they just didn't quite believe what the other ones were doing, because it was just so out of the ordinary. There would be other nights when they would be far more certain that something haunts the Chapel of the Cross. Okay, and then now here goes a little bit of the story of the chapel. The chapel was built by Miss Margaret L. Johnstone as a memorial to her husband, John T. Johnstone, a wealthy planter in antebellum Madison County, Mississippi. The Gothic design was by Frank Wills, an English architect who later worked for the Episcopal Archdiocese of New York. It was an Episcopal church consecrated in 1852. The chapel is called one of the best examples of Gothic architecture in the state of Mississippi. Okay, let's skip here a little bit. Interior woodwork plaster, it gives a little description of what you see here, how beautiful it all is. Okay, now we'll get to the story. John T. Johnstone was the younger brother of Scotland's Earl of Arundel, and he made his way to Madison County in 1820 from North Carolina, where he had first settled after emigrating to the United States. Johnson left his wife behind in North Carolina while he made the journey alone. She later joined him to complete a 2-room log cabin on the large acreage he purchased. The whole grew along with his family, and they raised 15 children together over the ensuing years. The eldest was Fanny, for whom her father built Ingleside House in 1846. The youngest was Helen, who played a central role in this legend of the Chapel of the Cross. Okay, we'll get to Helen's story here. I'll skip a little bit. Let me see here. Christmas season. Okay, during the Christmas season, this is 1855, the chapel was complete, and John Johnstone's legacy and Endale was now under construction by the widow. This is the estate they were building. The great mansion would eventually rise to become a 3-story Italianate villa with 40 rooms. Huge home. During that same Christmas season, Mrs. Johnston and her 16-year-old daughter, Helen, were visiting daughter Fanny and her family at Ingleside. One afternoon during the holidays, the dashing young Henry Gray Vick, the son of a founder of the city of Vicksburg, Mississippi, was traveling on the nearby road when his carriage became mired in the mud. Servants at Ingleside freed the carriage, but it was determined that several days would be needed for repairs to the vehicle. Vick was invited to stay at Ingleside, typical of Southern hospitality. During those few days, the beautiful Helen Johnston and Henry Vick fell in love. Mrs. Johnston was not displeased at the match. She liked Mr. Vick, but she insisted that the couple wait until Helen reached her 20s. She was just too young, she felt. She was 16 years of age. Their love persevered, and a wedding date was set for May 21st, 1859. Okay, a few days before the wedding, Henry Vick traveled to New Orleans looking for furnishings for their new home together and for wedding clothing for himself. By ill fortune, he came across one James Stith, a man who claimed that Vick had harmed him in an earlier business deal. The men argued, and Stith challenged Vick to a duel. Typical way men in antebellum South settled their differences. You had a duel. Okay, Vick tried to retreat from the challenge, perhaps worried over Stith's reputed excellence as a marksman, but with the thought of being called a coward, it was too much. Your honor was very important to these days. Even with the prospect of losing his life, he agreed to defend his honor, which in the South of the 1850s was to be expected from all gentlemen. Duels were officially banned, they were privately condoned. The two men met at the Holy Gardens in Mobile. Vick was the challenged. He had decided upon long rifles as the chosen weapon. With their backs to one another, Vick and Stith marched off 30 yards, turned and fired. Vick aimed into the air, Stith did not. The groom-to-be fell to the earth, mortally wounded. Mrs. Johnson brought the tragic news to her daughter Helen. As she prayed in the Chapel of the Cross, Helen insisted that Henry Vick's body be brought back so he could be buried in the church cemetery. Shortly before the planned wedding day, Vick's remains, packed in a piano box with ice and charcoal, used as preservatives, arrived at Annandale for burial. Some say that Helen insisted that the wedding go forward. Henry's wedding band was placed upon her finger before he was laid to rest in the chapel's graveyard, and the inscription on his tombstone, shaped as a cross, reads, Henry Ray Vick entered into rest May 17, 1859, and then carved into the stone are replicas of a dog and a gun. And for obvious reason, Helen, his betrothed, was inconsolable. She sat by her lover's grave for hours upon end, speaking in a quiet voice of what their life together would have held. And Mrs. Johnson was naturally worried about the tragedy and that this might permanently destroy her daughter's mind. She decided to close the estate and take Helen on an extended tour of Europe to just get away from all of this for a while and see what would happen for several months. When they returned, Helen seemed to have overcome her grief, at least by all the outward signs, and then Helen later remarried a Reverend George Harris, but she never truly overcame her love for Henry Vick, the love of her life. Everybody says you have one great love in your life. All other loves are secondary. She herself died in 1916, and her body rests at Rolling Fork Plantation, which became her home after her marriage to the Reverend Harris. Okay. The four Belhaven College students were never certain that they saw Helen's ghost at the Chapel of the Cross, but other visitors have reported seeing an attractive young woman sobbing near Henry Vick's grave. Grief is apparent in her face, and she fades away when a visitor dares to approach. On subsequent visits to the chapel, students decide to stay together. 3 of them were watching the front door, the one protected by the iron gate. When it opened, 2 figures came out. The door closed behind them. They passed through the bars of the gate. And then the most peculiar event that they ever reported that the chapel took place. The figures walked over to a nearby tree, climbed up its trunk, reached out onto a stout limb, and sat there for about a minute and a half before they finally faded away, as all ghostly apparitions do. They just stay for a little while and then they fade away. All 3 young men were certain that they saw the event at the same time. They didn't talk about the mysterious figures at any time. Whatever or whoever they saw seemed to want to... they didn't talk to them, I should say. Whatever or whoever these people were, they never seemed to want to have any contact with humans. Although Helen Johnson's ghost is most seen, there's another ghost at this chapel. This chapel is just full of haunts here. Years ago, the chapel had a caretaker. He cleaned the church. He did the caretaking, groomed the grounds there and everything. He had a wife. I'm kind of going to skip around here with this and make this a little short because it's a little bit of a long story here. He had a wife, and his wife was a very obnoxious woman. She had an uncontrollable giggle, and he just couldn't control her, and he just didn't care for her attitude at all. Something snapped inside of him one time. He yelled at her to stop. When she laughed and giggled even louder, he picked up an axe, and with one stroke, he severed her head. Wow. Okay. ended that marriage rather abruptly. Yeah, he dragged her body to a bench outside the front door, retrieved her head, and propped it atop her bloody neck. Yikes. Okay, because he was a fastidious, conscientious employee, he mopped up the blood, put away the axe, and then hanged himself from a rafter. The woman's giggle has not gone away. People say that the bloodstains from the murderous night reappear from time to time on the stone floor, and they hear the giggling laughter of this woman that was murdered there. A duel may also have produced other ghosts at the chapel, although its actual factual basis is not in doubt. Two men were in love with the same woman. They agreed to a duel in the graveyard. The winner married the woman. All three were supposed to be buried side by side, although there aren't any graves close to one another with the dates that the legends would that would coincide with this legend. So this little chapel of the cross in, what is this town? Bellhaven College, that was the college, in Mississippi, Madison County, Mississippi, is probably one of the most haunted churches that I've ever heard of in my life. They've got many, many haunts here. We can go on here. We've got some more stories here, but I think we'll let it go with that. We gave you like 3 or 4 of them out of that. And I apologize for reading. I usually don't like to read. I like to tell these stories myself because then I put my own feelings into them. But this one I had to read because I wasn't too familiar with it, and I just picked this book up the other day. We've got just a couple of minutes here, just enough time to say goodbye and thank you to Mr. Ryan Catoni. Thank you, sir. It was, like I said, it was a long time coming, and thank you for coming on. It was a joy having you here.
Yes, thank you very
I learned
much.
a lot of stuff myself. It was very interesting, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
You're welcome to come back anytime you'd like.
Well, definitely will.
If you branch out and decide to do mummifications, wrapping the bodies in linen and all that, you can come on and you can talk about that.
Okay. Yeah.
If you find some other process you want to do, if they want to do burials in space or something, and you decide you want to branch out into this, come back and talk about that. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
You're welcome on here anytime, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are going to sign off here with Paranormal Radio. Tune in with John DeVitta's station here, WindyCity.com, www.windycityhometown.com. Listen to all their other shows. They did a show here this morning. They taped Meet the Chicago Historians. They always have a real nice panel of people, interesting folks to talk to. They talk about every facet of history of Chicago you can think of here. Some interesting subjects on that. So tune in and listen to that and to the big band music and stuff that Mr. John DeVitta loves playing on this station here. And come back with us once a month here with Paranormal Radio. We'll be on next month in August. Usually in the middle of the month I do these shows, like around the 15th or so of the month, middle of the month I do them. And in the meantime, go up on YouTube in a couple of days. We'll be posted on there, youtube.com, not youtube.com, just go up to YouTube, Paranormal Radio, and today's date, July 15th, and this broadcast will come up. And you could hear Mr. Ryan talking about his cremation process there, and if this is something you'd like to do, get his phone number and address off of that and give him a call and talk to him. And also talk to him about doing your pre-arrangements on your funerals. This is a big thing now. People are really doing this, yeah. Real popular to do these pre-arrangements. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And folks, thank you so much for listening. It's a joy. I just love doing these shows. It's a pleasure coming to you once a month to do these, and thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
You have been listening to Paranormal Radio from the John DeVitta Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network with Bob Tricek. Paranormal Radio was directed by John DeVitta, edited by Stephen Lehman, and audio engineer James Rohde. This program was pre-recorded on Monday, July the 15th, the year 2013. Thanks, friends, for listening.